been a while since I made one of these, a Genshin Impact tier list. It's been a while since I made one of these videos, right? Most of you guys probably know me from my Genshin Impact tier list, or maybe you're some of my new viewers who have watched my anime videos. But either way, a Genshin Impact tier list was what I kind of grew up on. This is what it kind of grew my channel. But we're back with another Genshin Impact tier list. Now, it's been a while since I made a Genshin Impact tier list. A lot of characters had come out, and obviously my last video was Genshin related, talking about how me like kind of coming back to Genshin, right? But pretty much the last Genshin Impact tier list I did was the Wanderer, and it's been a while since the Wanderer release, and a lot of new characters have come out, right? Obviously, I would plan to make this video a while back, but then Baizhu came out, and I just kind of wanted to familiar myself with him before I made a new Genshin Impact tier list. So I have gathered a lot of information since my last Genshin video. I think I've expanded my knowledge, and I think I'm like confident enough to make a Genshin Impact tier list now. But obviously, I can get stuff wrong. I'm human just like you guys. Sometimes you guys don't know that from my last Genshin Impact tier lists. So obviously, let me know down in the comments some characters that you think are misplaced or you think is higher or lower, because I know there's someone who's out there who has like a level 90 Miko that has level 10 talents and crowned all of Miko's talents, but I am not that guy. I do not have Miko crowned 3 times. So if you are that one person, let me know down in the comments what you think of him. But besides that, I'm going to try to give you my general info. Obviously, I might make some mistakes. I'm still kind of new to this, to some of these new characters, but other characters I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on where they are in the meta. So let's get into this. Obviously, none of the tiers are ranked, so just because you see Child in front of Raiden doesn't mean I think Child is better than Raiden. I just don't have time to order all these characters, because if I did, we'd be here for 10 years. And let me fix this. I don't know why S is higher than A, so let me just fix that real quick. All right, now that's all set. Let's starting up with Child. So I think Child has gone better in the meta since I've been gone. I don't think he bumps up to top 10. I think he still deserves to be 11 through 20 like he always is. Hybrid Bloom, Raiden National, every team, he's still great. Shang Lang team, still great. So Child will always be 11 through 20. I think you can argue top 10, but right now I think he is 11 through 20. Let me know what you guys think of him. Raiden will always be top 10 in my opinion. I think nowadays I don't think she's as valued as she was when I was playing originally, but I do think she's still top 10. Probably, I think still like she's still deserving of top 10. It'd be very hard for her not to be in the top 10. Amber, C tier. Obviously, in my last tier list videos, I think I had like a B minus or something like that, but I just decided to have C tier just so I can understand that this is like pretty much the mid tier. Like if you're using this character, like I guess you can get away with it, but like, why would you want to suffer through using like an Amber, right? She can do some stuff, but besides that, not that great. Next up, Shang Lang, obviously top 10 in some of the greatest comps ever. One of the best supports, one of the sub DPS, one of the main DPS. Anything you place her on, she's a god tier in that. Candace, C tier. Like before she was bad when I first was making these tier lists, and now she's still bad. I would say she's even worse when coming back. Candace, I just can't think of a world where I'd ever use her. So C tier in my opinion. Next is Alhaitham. This is a character that is new to me. To you guys, he's been out for a while. Obviously, I try to inform myself as much as possible, but from what I know, he's 11 through 20, 11 through 20, yes. That's what I meant to say. He is 11 through 20. I think he is 11 through 20, one of the only, well, in my opinion, the only Dendro DPS in the game, so he is super valued. It's kind of like when Tignari, well, yeah, Tignari is also a Dendro DPS. It's kind of like when Tignari first released, right? When Tignari first released, I also had to do 11 through 20 because he was kind of like the only Dendro DPS in the game. And I think Alhaitham is better than Tignari, so if you're the best Dendro DPS, you automatically are going to get like a higher rating because your value is way higher. Voice crack, my bad. But besides that, I think his value could come down, but he just does like so much good damage, and when you're like the best Dendro DPS, I think you deserve to be 11 to 20. Obviously, maybe some people might disagree. Next up is Chongyun. The only reason I used to have him B tier was because Abyss Heralds existed, but like Abyss Heralds are not even like that much of a thing in Spiral Abyss. Like I don't even think they're in Spiral Abyss right now. So like his only value was that he could kind of help defeat Abyss Heralds. Besides that, he was kind of useless, and now that he doesn't have anyone to beat Abyss Heralds, he's C tier in my opinion. He's been outdated for a long time, so deserving C tier. Down here in the ranks with Candace and Amber. Pretty tough for Chongyun. I like him as a character, but he needs a buff or something like that. He needs some better artifacts or some type of artifacts to help him out. Next up is Xinyan. We're not getting any better, so Xinyan also C tier, a bad physical DPS, and physical DPS already down terrible. So if you're a bad physical DPS, kind of tough for you. So also C tier. Now Shenhe, when I came back to this game, she's probably the most mixed character, even when I was still playing this game back then. I would say she's either 11 through 20 or S tier. Because when you think about it, she's one of the most niche characters in the game, because if you don't have a crowd DPS, like to most of you guys, she is kind of useless. But I think she deserves to be 11 to 20. I might change my opinion later out through the video, but right now she's 11 to 20. Could see her in S, could make an argument for S, but right now 11 to 20 for right now. Next up is Miko. B tier, I guess, just because like, I guess he's cryo. Cryo, being a cryo element kind of helps, but besides being cryo, like he really doesn't have too much going for him. So to me, he is B tier. He's a little. I could see in the future him being more valued just because he's a cryo healer. He can kind of do some stuff. Besides that, I argue C tier. I think he might actually be C tier. He might just be C tier. I can't even. I would never recommend him over like a Diona or any other cryo character. So C tier for me. With so many cryo characters, like I guess in comparison, he is just kind of bad. Next up is Ayaka. Ayaka easily top 10, one of the best DPS in the game. She still hasn't changed from being a top 10, deserving of top 10 pretty easily. Next up is Xingqiu, also top 10 unit. Can't go wrong with Xingqiu. He just offers so much stuff in the game. Like, he is pretty much the Hydro Piler. And, you know, with Hyper Blue and all that type of stuff, he definitely has only improved since the beginning of Genshin. Next up is Barbara. I do not think she's C tier. I think she's B tier, just obviously the reviving mechanic. She does kind of freeze yourself sometimes. But besides that, she's like a decent healer. I don't think she should be C tier just because off of the reviving mechanic alone. Probably the only character who can do that. Obviously, some people don't care about that, but I think it's kind of helpful for new players, and I think it's better than at least a Candace in my opinion. Next up is Venti. Now Venti, I kind of have a mixed opinion on Venti because like I think he's either 11 to 20 or S tier, and right now, I'll put him 11 through 20 just because, like, if the enemies can be grouped up with Animo, I think he's a god tier unit. Like, if all the Spiral Abyss enemies could just all be moved by his ultimates, he would definitely be top 10. But since most of the characters in Spiral Abyss, like, they can't even be moved by his ult, it kind of just makes it a little bit more useless than it used to be. But if the enemies can be moved, he is a top 10 character in the game. But since a lot of enemies in the Spiral Abyss, which is the main form of content in Genshin, he is 11 through 20 in my opinion. Next up is Goru. I think I'm saying his name right. I totally forgot his name to say. So Goru, dog, Geo kid. I think he's S tier. I always get hate for putting him there because like people don't understand when I rank these characters, I'm ranking them kind of on their best team and their best niches. So most people might think of Goru as like, well, if I have him, I would put him C tier. But most people don't understand. If you have an Artakido, if you have a Noel, his value is just skyrockets, right? Think about it. Let's say we had a Hydro Bennett. You know how OP that sounds? A Hydro Bennett. That sounds like one of the most OP characters in the game. Now, when you think of a Geo Bennett, obviously a little less value because Hydro is just a better element in the game. But as long as we get better Geo characters, his value would only increase. So just off of like his stats alone, even though he might not be valued to a lot of people, when you have a Geo DPS, like he is the guy. Like you need him on a Geo team. So S tier for me. Obviously, some people just don't value him because they don't have a Geo character, but in his value, in his niche, he is an S tier. Next up is Ningguang. Now Ningguang is probably like an A tier. Like, she's solid, she does really good damage, but besides that, she really doesn't offer too much to a team. Like, if you need a DPS, you're not going to Ningguang. If you need a sub DPS, Ningguang does work. If you need a support, I guess use Ningguang. But besides that, she's kind of just like, she's never the best option in any situation you put her in. She's just kind of solid in every situation. So I will just put her A tier in my opinion. She's solid, but just never a first option in my opinion. Next up is Lisa. Lisa's B tier. She's solid. Being Electro kind of helps her out because, you know, Dendro Element's kind of carrying Electro right now. So that's kind of what gives her value. But besides that, I don't really recommend her over a lot of Electro characters. Next up is Ayato. Now, Ayato is kind of a mixed opinion for me because, like, if you have a child, you're not using Ayato, but Ayato is way cooler in my opinion. His ultimate's pretty good as a support, but obviously a lot of people aren't using his ultimate as a support when Xingqiu exists. But if you don't have a Yellen, I think it's kind of useful. So I think he's either 11 through 20 or S tier. I'll put him through 11 through 20 right now. I might drop him later on in the video. Depends on who I decide to put over him. Next up is Hu Tao. Now Hu Tao is a top 10 character for me. I think she's slowly creeping down in the tier list. I think you can make an argument 11 to 20, but she is one of the best pyro damage dealers in the game. And when you're a pyro character and you do a lot of damage, like, it's kind of hard for you to ever be out of the meta. So she is top 10 for me for right now. The future, she might change. Sucrose, 11 to 20 character. Obviously you can argue she should be a top 10 character, but just a really solid character in general. Yaimiko's either S or 11 to 20. I already have a lot of 11 to 20 characters already. I would put her S tier for right now. That might be a little harsh. I think she is really good, but I don't know how valued I have her in the game when we have just so many great electro characters in the 11 to 20 spots. So I'll put her S tier. Maybe might bump her up later in the video. Now, I was never a big Jean fan, and a lot of people didn't see my standpoint on why I'm not a big Jean fan. And I'm putting her A tier. Like, I just think with all the animal characters we have nowadays, I can't see a use for Jean currently, right? Obviously, if you're a newer player, I can understand why you might value Jean. But like, once you get further into the game, which I think a lot of people are further into the game than more than ever, but obviously we always get new players. If you're a new player, maybe her value might be in the S- or S tier, but if you're just like a long time player like me, I think she's A tier. She's like on Ning Wong level. She's not that useful later on in the end game content. That is just my opinion. Let me know down in the comments if you guys disagree. Next up is Tignari. I think he's still a solid damage dealer. I think he's an S tier. I don't think he is any higher. Obviously, when he first came out, his value was way higher. But besides that, Dendro character S tier for me. Yayo, I'm very mixed on her. Obviously, she is a newer character to me. In my opinion, she's either A or A minus or S minus. I would say she's probably S minus. She's solid, but I don't really have too much to say about her because she's new and I don't have my hands on her to play that much. So all I can go is off of just, content from other people I've seen, obviously from people in my Discord and all that type of stuff. But let me know down in the comments where you guys think she's placed. But I think right now, from what I know about her, she is S minus. Next up is Toma. Toma's an S tier. Obviously, some people might disagree because Toma will always be the most underrated character in Genshin, and somehow just people forget about him for some reason. He's just so good as a support. Obviously, if you don't have a Zhongli, a great shooter in my opinion. I would just say S tier Toma. Obviously, people just underrate him so heavily. Next up is Wanderer. I think Wanderer's S tier. He's solid, but I would always prefer like a Zhao or like a Venti, or there's just so many good animal characters in the game. A Kazuo. I would just prefer a lot of those other characters over a Wanderer in my opinion. Next up is Yunjin. I'm pretty sure that's her name, right? I think I forgot. There's just so many characters in the Genshin who start with a Y. Why did I say U? A Y in the game. So I'm pretty sure this is Yunjin. Obviously, I don't think when I first ranked her on the tiers, I think I had her S minus because like normal attacking was kind of, she's still very niche character. I think she's like a Goro type of character where like in her niche she's pretty solid, but she's either S minus or A. I would maybe S minus. I'll put her S minus. It's either mixed because like her value in the game is not that high, right? But her kit is pretty good. I would put her A right now. Obviously, if you're using Yoimiya or maybe even Alhaitham. I've never really seen someone use an Alhaitham with a Yunjin, but I guess that could work if you're just normal attacking most of the time. But obviously, I don't think she's that valuable. I think the more normal attacking characters we have in the game, the more value should get. But since we don't have a lot, A tier for me arguably should be higher. Alloy, easy C tier. I don't really need to say much about her. Voice crack. Farzan, S minus. I just think you need to have a really high constellation, and since I don't know how many banners she's been in, but I don't think a lot of characters have her high constellation. Obviously, she does give value to someone like a Wanderer, Zhao, Kazuo, and all those type of characters who do a lot of animal damage. Obviously, her value would be high, but I don't think she's a top tier support that deserves to be an S tier in my opinion. Next up is Nilo. Now Nilo, 11 to 20, she's pretty solid, pretty good, but I don't know, maybe she'd be bumped down. Maybe this is a good spot for her. 11 to 20, let me know what you guys think. I don't hear too much about her nowadays because like people kind of just like there's only like a certain amount of Nihilo fans who play her because I don't really hear too much about her just because I don't think she's gotten a rerun in a while, from my opinion. I don't remember. When was her last rerun? I don't really hear too much about her, so I would like to know what you guys think. But when she first released, I think she still deserves to be in 11 to 20. Obviously, I hear a lot of good things when when I came back to Genshin and when I was still playing Genshin. Obviously, next up is Bennett. Top 10. I don't think really anyone has anything to debate about that. Next up is the Traveler. Traveler is like, the only reason I don't like to give him a high rating is because I don't really recommend the Traveler that much. Like maybe it's just like a personal bias, but like, who really wants to play the Traveler? Not me. So it's just kind of like a playstyle wise. Like, I guess I don't really recommend him that much. But besides that, I guess if you want to play him, he's fine. I just think there's just so many better options because his main attraction is when he first releases his element. Like when he first released as an Electro character, top tier. When he first released as a Dendro character, top tier. When he first released as a Geo character, pretty solid. But besides that, every time new characters come out, just the Traveler gets worse and worse and worse. So A tier, in my opinion, just because we have so many Dendro characters in the game. Next up is Zhao. I don't think Zhao's 11 to 20, but I do think he's better than Wanderer. I'm not going to order this tier, but I do think he is better than Wanderer in my opinion, just because I think he has a better artifact set and his kit is just better in my opinion. Obviously, people might disagree because I know a lot of people love the Wanderer and a lot of people say Wanderer is better than Zhao, but obviously that's up to the debate. So you guys can debate that in the comments. Let me know which you guys think is better, but I think they're both on the same tier in my opinion. Kujo Sara is like, I just think she's very overrated. I think she's like, I'll give her S minus. I guess I'll give her S minus. I assume a lot of people already have a high constellation. She's just been out in the game so long. People probably have her high constellation. But if you have her low constellation, she's like A tier. I just don't think she's that good of a support or a damage. I just don't really recommend Kujo Sora at all. I don't think she's as great as everyone says she is. But she'll be an S minus in my opinion. Yanfei, I'm pretty sure that's her name. Yanfei, I think she's like A tier, solid power damage dealer, but like I often don't recommend catalyst damage dealers just because like catalyst damage dealers already have so many issues in general just because of gameplay wise and Spiralibus. I think she just deserves to be an A tier in my opinion. Next up is Diluc, also A tier. I think Lord Better Call Saul Girl, I think she does more damage, but Diluc, I think she has better team comps in my opinion. I think he's just like being a Claymore is just way easier to play without having issues than someone like Yunjin, who just has too many issues being a Catalyst user. That is just my opinion. Let me know down in the comments if you guys think she should be higher, but that's just my opinion. Kazuha, easy top 10. That's pretty, like, no debate in my opinion. Kokomi still 11 to 20. Not that great of a kit, but she just really good supports for some of the top tier characters in the game. 11 to 20 in my opinion. Albedo, where would I even put Albedo? Do I think he still deserves to be S tier? I guess he kind of does. Just because, like, his value is so much more better than some other Geo characters. I guess I'll put him S tier. I think it's debatable. I'll put him S tier for right now. Might bump him down a little later. Ganyu, 11 to 20. I think her value is dropping off significantly later on in the video. Later on, I think her value is very dropping highly in the meta. She used to be the best damage dealer in the game. Now, kind of iffy. Next up is Kyuki. I'll put her 11 to 20. She is really solid. One of the best characters for Dendro teams, and I kind of have this 11 to 20 kind of stacked, and I don't think there should be this many characters in the 11 to 20 because let me count how much is it. There should only be max 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Obviously, I think I'm gonna have to bump a couple characters down. This could be a quick cut. I'm gonna bump some of these characters down and I'll explain right after. So jump cut. All right, so jump cut afterwards finish. I moved down 3 characters. Obviously, I might pick them back up, but I moved down Ayato just because I think Child is the better Ayato, so I don't know if they should be in the same tier. Shenhe I brought down just because like she's just a very niche character similar to Goro, so I think they should kind of be in the same tier. Nilo I brought down just because I kind of think Kokomi's better as a support, and I don't think Nilo is that great as a DPS in my opinion. Obviously, you guys can fight me on that. Let me know down in the comments what do you guys think of these 3 kind of demotions, but I might bring them up back. I just think there's some characters that are coming up that should be higher. Let me move Cyno later because I think I have a lot to talk about Cyno later. So let me talk about Cyno later. Let's talk about Mona. Mona is guess S tier. Honestly, I think I might demote Mona. I don't think I've ever had her S minus, but I think I'm demoting Mona. I'm looking at how many good Hydro characters we have in the S tier. I think later on, I think there's just so many good Hydro characters that I think she might deserve the demotion to S minus in my opinion. I think Farazan and Mona kind of offer you the same value, and I think a high constellation Kudra Star is kind of at the same level in my opinion. Obviously different teams, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, let me know in the comments where you guys value Mona. I think she is kind of a little outdated in my opinion. Obviously, she is still like pretty high if you don't have some of these other Hydro characters, but in terms of value, I think her value has kind of got worse in my opinion. Next up is Keqing. Keqing, I think since we have such little electro characters, I think I do have her S tier. Obviously, that might be controversial because like, oh, Mona's more valuable to a team than Keqing. Obviously, I'm ranking Keqing as the main damage dealer, and I think she's pretty solid with all the new Dendro characters coming out. And since we have a lack of very much electro damage dealers in the game, I think she deserves S tier. I think Yai Miko is a little better, but I don't think if she's that much better to be 11 to 20 in my opinion. Next up is Beidou. Beidou is like an S minus to me. She is pretty solid, but I don't think she deserves to be an S tier in my opinion. I think she is, how would I say this? She's kind of like an Electro Xinglang in my opinion, but obviously like Electro Xinglang is not as good. And obviously like just like her kit is not as good as Xinglang. I think S minus here. Obviously you can fight me on that. You guys can let me down in the comments if you think she should be higher. I don't think she should be lower than S minus, but I think she's pretty solid. Obviously, I don't think she just get that much use and play in the meta right now. Artak Ito, S tier just because he is the best geo damage dealer in the game. Obviously, he has like so great damage in my opinion. His damage is just crazy. I just think we just need better geo supports in the game in general. If we had better geo supports and like more help for the geo class, I think he'd just be way better. Next up is Layla. I'm arguing between S minus or A tier. I think she's A tier. Obviously, shields are good. She's a crowd shielder, so being like a crowd shielder is already kind of solid. But besides that, I don't see too much value in a shielder because I think a shielder should offer a little more than just shielding in my opinion. Obviously she offers like some cryo application, but I think some characters can do that better. Talking about a character that is kind of coming up in a couple characters later on that who can I think do it better and doesn't have as good as shields, but I think she's pretty solid. Offers some of the best shields in the game, but I don't know if she should be any higher than A tier in my opinion. Next up is Nahida. I think she is obviously a top 10 character in the game. Obviously, the Dendro class is also OP. And under the Dendro Archon, you're as OP as well. I don't think I really need to explain that much why she should be top 10 in characters in the game. Arguably top 3 in the characters in the game. Deserving of the top 10. Next up is Koli for Dendro. I think she's A tier. Obviously, a pretty good damage application, but like, I just think there's so many better Dendro appliers in the game, especially with Baizhu came out, and I think he just offers better, and just her value continues to dwindle, especially because like her mechanics and elemental skill and elemental burst are kind of clanky in my opinion. Next up is Deha. Try to correct me. Next up is Deha. Obviously, I don't think I know how to pronounce her name right. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it right, but Deha. This is the character that came out like I think a month right after I made the Wanderer video, so obviously I was kind of keeping up with Genshin, but not too much. But I did live the hate for her because like for me, I'm a D1 hater. I love hating on characters. That's just kind of my thing. Why do you think I make tier lists? I like to show who's good and show who's bad. So in a sense, I kind of do like hating on characters a bit. Just hating is pretty fun, right? It's just fun to troll in my opinion. So Deha was like, it was kind of funny to see how much hype she got, and she ended up being pretty mid. I don't know if she deserves to be B tier mid. I think she's A tier in my opinion, maybe even worse. Obviously some supports in this tier are better than her, but like if you're not jumping, I guess this can work. But besides that, I don't really recommend Deha at all. So A tier for me. Next up is Diona. Now Diona was who I was hinting at when I was talking about Layla. Obviously, I think Diona is kind of getting a demotion with the S minus tier. Obviously, I think there's just better supports than S tier. Obviously, there's an argument to be made that she deserves to be S tier, but for right now, I think she is an S minus tier in my opinion. I think she's solid, but I think her value is kind of gone down a little bit in my opinion. I just don't think she's as valid as characters in S tier, in my opinion. I just think the S tier, look at the S tier. This S tier is so stacked that it's actually kind of crazy in my opinion. Like Diona being compared to some of these characters, kind of maybe a fair comparison, but when I look at the S tier is just so much stacked now that it's kind of crazy how like great you have to be in the level 20 in the top 10 characters to be even considered for that. Next up is Kaya. I think Kaya is also probably an S minus character, pretty solid, good cryo application. Obviously, I think what hinders him is that it's hard to get his constellations, in my opinion. It's because like it's really hard for him to get a constellation because he's never featured on a banner. I wish some characters were featured on banners. Some of the generic abuse. Getting constellations for these characters are insane unless you're a whale. But you know, Kai S minus. I think I actually could have put Kai at A tier. I'm looking at the S minus tier, and that's a pretty solid tier. I don't think he quite deserves to be in that tier, in my opinion. So demoting him, maybe some people might have grievances. Besides that, I don't think it's that big of a deal to demote him. Next up is Eula. Now, obviously, I have my Eula biases because she is one of my favorite characters in the game. She doesn't have a rerun. Like, we haven't had a Eula rerun in forever. So, technically, Eula's kind of rare if you have her. So, S tier, that is controversial because, like, you might be saying, well, physical damage dealing isn't that relevant in the game anymore. Yeah, that is true. But if they don't have a high physical resistance, she is a god. Like, she does some of the craziest damage in the game if like the character isn't a ruin enemy. So I'm kind of like ranking her on the same prowess as like Aratakido. Because if you look at Aratakido, obviously you might say, well, Aratakido, like who uses Aratakido? There's better damage dealers in the game. I think since Aratakido is the best geo damage dealer, deserving of to be S tier, and since Eula is the best physical damage dealer, I think they both deserve to be S tier. I think my camera's a little covering up her face, but you guys can see that she is S tier. Next up is Razor. Now Razor is like, I don't even think I should put him A tier. I think he's actually B tier at this point. Like, I could never recommend a Razor over Diluc nowadays. Like, honestly, just because like maybe I could. Nah, I'm just putting Razor B tier. Like, I just can't see a situation where I would ever pick anyone in the A tier, like, below I'd pick Razor. There's no one in the A tier that I would say has the same level of a Razor. I think B tier is more fitting for him. It's kind of crazy to see the fall off of Razor. Razor used to be so valued in the game, to be one of the best damage dealers in the game. Now look at him. Kind of sad, but he's gone. Next up is Sayu. Sayu is like A tier for me just because she's Animo. If she wasn't Animo, like, is anyone really using her? So, A tier for me. That's pretty much it. Next up is Henzo. I think his name is Henzo. I totally forgot his name. I'm pretty sure it's Henzo. The Avatar Puncher. The Avatar Mike Tyson. B tier for me. I think because he's Animo, it also kind of carries him as well. Obviously, I don't think he's any higher, but fun mechanic, he might be higher, but besides that, I don't think he's that good. Next up is Cyno. Now, Cyno, obviously could be controversial, but one of the best like main damage dealer, like that's literally his whole kit is based off of like electro damage dealing, right? Which electro damage dealing is pretty useful nowadays when we have so many Dendro characters who are supposed to be supporting stuff like Hyper Bloom, stuff like Aggravate, like all that type of stuff. I think electro characters have become more prominent than ever, and when you look at the top 10 and 11 to 20 spots, not many electro damage dealers. So let's slide in Cyno there, because if you're really the best electro damage dealer besides Raiden, because Raiden's like, I would say she's more of like a, like, she's not really being using for aggravate teams. Like, you're not running an aggravate Raiden. You're running like a Pyro Overlord Raiden with like Xing Lang or National Raiden team. Like, there's very few situations where you're running an aggravate Raiden. And when for aggravate teams, when you need an aggravate main DPS, I think Cyno is always your guy. So I would always just have him 11 to 20 in my situation. Obviously, the better electro damage dealers will come into the game maybe in the future that maybe might demote him and be more valued than Cyno. But for right now, Cyno is definitely 11 to 20. I would say at the lower end of that, but pretty solid. Next up is Klee. I think Klee is also A tier. Just so many characters in the A tier, they're just alright. Just I would never recommend. That's kind of like the pretty much the basis of an A tier. The A tier to me is just like characters who are solid, but I'd never recommend. Speaking of a character who I would never recommend and who I don't think is solid, Dory. Dory, I honestly think she's C tier. Like, I don't think I'd ever recommend her in any situation. Like, I can't even think of a single situation I recommend Dory. Kyuki, 10 times better than Dory. Lisa, and some teams I would recommend Lisa over Dory. She covers more space consider what Dory does. Obviously, Dory, she can heal, right? From what I remember, I'm pretty sure she does heal. But besides that, like, like her kit is just like, I'd say useless. Like, I don't think a situation where I'd ever recommend Dora in my opinion. Next up is Fischl. Fischl, I love her the 20 spot in my opinion. She's just so solid. I don't think that there's a character who is more solid when it comes to electro application. Obviously, I think Kyuki and Fischl are kind of the same tier because they kind of both do something different. Like Fischl, I think she's better at applying electro and doing better, more damage than electro. But Kyuki obviously offers healing and, you know, some electro application, and obviously her ult does do some pretty solid damage. So I think they kind of have two different niches, but electro is just so good in this nowadays, in my opinion. Electro used to be one of the worst elements in the game. Now I considered one of the best because of Dendro being in the game. Next up is Yellen. Now Yellen's obviously a top 10 character in the game. It's kind of hard to argue that. Yellen is definitely a top 10 character in the game. Super solid. Just pretty much another Xingqiu for you. So when you have two Xingqius, it's pretty solid. Next up is Rosaria. Now obviously I don't kind of know her Rosaria's kind of value in the meta sense, but I do know her as a character a lot. She's one of my like level 90 characters, like pretty much all like level 9 talents. So to me, she is pretty, like, I have her well built, and I think she will always be pretty solid, and I think she is deserving of an S tier. That is obviously some bias coming into play, but looking at S minus, looking how stacked S tier is, man. S tier is so stacked. I think she's S minus. That's tough for me because I have a bias for her, but looking at the S tier, man, that tier is just so stacked, it's actually insane. That's where I'm putting Rosario. Hurts my core to do that, but that's where I'm gonna have her. Next up is Zhongli. Zhongli's top 10. Obviously, some people might disagree, but his shield is still insane. His pillars are still insane. Just deserving of top 10 in my opinion. Chi-Chi, C tier. I don't think anyone has to. I don't think I even need to explain Chi-Chi. Noelle. Obviously, I think she's probably S minus just because Goro exists. Goro, whatever, however you say his name. Just because he exists, she's just a pretty solid damage dealer. She does really good damage, but I just never would recommend her over some DPS in these characters. Obviously, there is situations if you have her C6 that she can do more damage in these characters, but when you just have so much better supports for some of these other main DPSs, I think I value them more. Next up is Yoimiya. Now, Yoimiya, I think she deserves to be S tier. Obviously, it's kind of hard for you guys to see. You could see by the bottom bit, but Yoimiya S tier for me, in my opinion. She is super solid. Obviously, I think there's various situations where I guess she's probably better in Spalabus now. It's kind of mixed with the Yoimiya, right? She's a god at melting one single target, right? Character, but besides that, when you're facing against 3 Magyu Kenkis, it's kind of rough for you. But when it comes to single target damage dealing, Yoimiya is just a god at it. She is the best. So S tier for me. Obviously, she is kind of in a situation with like an Artak, Ito, Eula, and Yoimiya, and they're just kind of all the best in their own niche. Now on to the new characters. Kaveh, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing his name right. Kaveh is a very interesting character. I'm very mixed on where to put him because he's a character that kind of like a Farazan, kind of like a Yellen, kind of like a Garu, kind of like a Shanahan, where I don't know his value yet, right? Obviously, the more characters that come out who need Hyper Bloom will be very useful, but pretty much what he does is pretty much like Hyper Bloom, those little like Dendro orbs, he just makes them instantly pop. He makes them instantly explode. So obviously for Hyper Blue teams, it just makes damage way faster. Obviously, I can already see the clips where people are going to use Kaveh, and they're going to be like, oh, watch this, and it's just going to be a bunch of Hyper Bloom damage. But besides that, I don't know if you really need a slot for just to maximize speed. Obviously, when it comes to speed running, like that's always important because the Spiralibus is always timed, and the fastest time you can get will always be useful. But for Kaveh, I don't know if you would want to place a spot in him. Obviously, I think there's going to be a character coming out in the future, especially if we get a Hydra Archon, where maybe Kaveh might be like super useful. So for me, he's very mixed because there is not that many teams that are Hyper Bloom. There's not that many meta teams that are Hyper Bloom that I can think off of the top of my head. But for right now, he's either A or A minus, S minus. The only reason I'd be putting him S minus off of the value that he will become value later on in the future. but right now I think he's A tier. His value will only get higher when hyper boom teams will become more meta, and when we get more like characters who actually need hyper boom. So his value will go up, but right now I just don't see a team that you would want to place him in unless you're trying to do like a clip and you're just like, oh, watch all these Dendro orbs pop. But I think you can just like kind of wait the timer out, in my opinion. Just wait for them to pop on their own. Obviously, he'll make the game a lot easier, but I just can't think of a hyper boom team off of the top of my head that would kind of really need him right now. Next up is Baizhu. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right because I've heard his name say so many different ways, but I'm just going off of how people have been saying it. Baizhu. Correct me in the comments if I'm saying his name wrong. Baizhu, he's a very interesting character. I don't know where to put him yet because I think his value could be 11 to 20. He's very mixed to me. I do have an open slot for through 11 to 20. I could bump someone else. Maybe he is 11 to 20. I'm thinking about right now. Dendro supports are only going to be going up, right? Dendro supports are going to be only going up. When we look at our Dendro supports, we don't have that money, right? You look at Nahida, you look at Al Haytham, he is a damage dealer. You look at some of our other, like our next best damage helper is like a Colleen and a Dendro Traveler. So I think his value is just going to be super high right now. So this might be the highest he ever is, or maybe even might get higher. But for me, he is 11 to 20 character right now. His Dendro application is really good. Obviously for aggravate teams and hyper boom teams, he is just really good. So Baizhu, I have him 11 to 20. This was a long video. Obviously, this is super long. Obviously, so much stuff that I had to catch up on. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this tier list. Obviously, my voice is killing for how long. This, for me, this is a 40-minute recording session. I don't know, but this might be a 30-minute video for you guys. So, obviously, if you skipped the video, please don't do that. Like, obviously, people could be like, type in the comments, why did you put this character there? Why did you put this character there? If you watch the video, you guys will understand why I put characters there. But obviously, let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this series. I think when it comes to making these series, your guys' help is most important, because from all my tiers that I always make, I think comments help me out a lot to understand these characters even further, because I can't build all these characters maxed out. I'm not building a maxed out Deha, but I know there is people who build out a max Deha, and you guys have a better opinion and a probably stronger basis to rank her than I do. So let me know characters that you guys think should be higher and characters that you think lower, and let me know about these new characters in the Genshin Impact game that I might not be too familiar with. So let me know down in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope to see you guys next time. Later. Peace out.